The Carolina Hurricanes have 3 more games before the Four Nations break, and they make it stop real quick north of the border in Winnipeg. I am joined by Mike Maniscalco as we kind of look on the last 53 games to start the season, why the Hurricanes should look for a center over goaltending, and we're also going to preview the Canes and the Jets. All of that on an action-packed Tuesday right here on Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. I'm also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my dudes here at Locked On Hurricanes. But we know we're not here for me. You're here for my special guest, and I'm very excited to have him on in, Mike Maniscalco. But before we jump into all of that today with him, today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. New customers bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. And Mike, thank you once again for coming on. It is always a pleasure to have you on Locked On Hurricanes. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Zach, and they should be here for you. If they're here for me, we've got to talk about people prioritizing their life. But no, appreciate it. Looking forward to it here in balmy Winnipeg, where it was when we got off of the plane, -5 Fahrenheit with the wind chill. With the wind chill, feels like -21.
Oh, only just a -21. Jeez. Well, hopefully you bundled up in 5 jackets, long johns, hoodies, and all that stuff. But you're from upstate New York. It's probably not as you're probably used to it by that point.
I've been gone for 24 years. The blood gets thin very fast, Zach. But no, it does. I tell you what, though, it will lead to, for me, for the guys who grew up here, most notably Seth Jarvis. But
yeah.
The guys talk about it when they come back and play in Canada this time of year. It does get their blood going. They're excited about this. So it should be a really good matchup. This is one that when the Canes got off to that good start in October, and the same thing that the Jets did, this was a game that I was looking at going, okay, when do these two teams face off against each other? So we're going to get a good look at what both these teams can do.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely for sure. And luckily, everyone, you have to stick around. We will talk about Canes Jets later on. There's a lot of other great stuff we got to get into with Mike. And I do want to ask you, so we're 53 games into the season. We got 3 games left before the Four Nations break. We kind of talked about in the preseason, where we're looking at for the Hurricanes. While they might have taken a slight step back, this is still a playoff team. And right now, it seems like they almost have second place locked in. Playoffs, obviously, for sure. What has, we'll talk about individual players, but overall, what has stood out to you for this Carolina Hurricanes team with the guys they've lost, but the guys they've also brought in and just kind of found a way to, exceed whatever expectations people had of them completely fallen off the map, but they clearly haven't.
Haven't changed how they play one iota. I mean, that's it. When you replace, when you think about it, your roster is 23 guys, but technically you're dressing 20 players. You've got your 12 forwards, your 6 defensemen, 2 goalies. Mm-hmm. They replaced a quarter of their roster from last year. And you wouldn't know it with the way that they started the year, the way that they played. December, they did the cha-cha. They'd win one, they'd lose one, one step forward, one step back. But then they come out and they rip off 10 wins in January. That, for me, is, if we're looking at this as a whole, this is how the Carolina Hurricanes play hockey. This is their identity under Rod Brind'Amour. This is how the core of this team plays, and that doesn't change based on who's wearing the uniform. What they're expected and how they're expected to play is how they play every single night. And when they get to that game, they're one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah, no, 100%. And we're not even talking about the additions of Ranton and Hall, which we'll get to here in a little bit, but you look at the additions of of an Eric Robinson, Jack Roslovic, Sean Walker, Shane Gostisbehere. I know me and you talked about before the Preds, preseason game when it's talk about, we were both excited for Jack Roslovic, and maybe he's cooled off maybe a little bit, but overall though, what a career season for him that he's been playing right now. What's really impressed you overall just Jack Roslovic kind of fitting into the system so well?
I think that he has found that niche of being able to be a shooter. His shot, I think, is incredibly underrated throughout the league. And he has shown that he doesn't need much room to get it off. If you would have told me, and by no means is this a slight, but if you would have told me that the Canes were going to get 18 goals for the full season out of Jack Roslovic for the contract they signed him to, I'm like, sign me up for that. That's right. That's that secondary scoring, or however depth scoring, as we like to use now in all the catchphrases. That's the depth scoring that you need. Well, right. He's got 18 right now, and he's going to have 28 games after the Four Nations break, 27 games after the Four Nations to add to that total. So right. I mean, if he gets 25, I mean, that's outstanding for the Canes. But I look at what he's chipped in right now, and you brought up Eric Robinson, and I don't want to steal questions from you, but
no,
he's a guy.
Go ahead.
he's a guy who's fit right in. I mean, he's going to have a career best season.
100%
with the Carolina Hurricanes. He's already tied his career best in goals with 12. The assists are going to come for him too because of where he can play. And what I love about Eric Robinson, he's one of these Rod Brindamore type players that he likes to coach, which is he can move him up and down the lineup and not worry about how Eric Robinson's going to play. Straightforward speed, way faster than I think any of us in Carolina thought he was. In the brief times that we saw him play in Columbus, or in Buffalo before that. But the speed, the size, the fact that he is pretty dogged on the puck as a forechecker, he fits in with everything. And again, it goes back to the whole picture. The guys that they added, who they had to replace, there hasn't been much of a lag time for these to catch up. And often you don't say that. I mean, look at what Stefan Nason is doing in New Jersey. Yeah. And he was a fourth liner for Carolina. I know Rod doesn't number his lines. So,
we don't say that here.
but he wasn't necessarily playing top line minutes, but you could move him up. Well, Eric Robinson and Jack Roslovic have taken that role. It's maybe not to the power play production that Stefan Nason was able to provide, but the 5-on-5 play has clearly been there. Robinson doesn't see the power play, but penalty killing, he's gone over the boards. Roslovic sees time on that second power play, and that's what stands out to me. And then what the Canes get out of those forwards and what they're asked to do, it's not an easy game for Carolina. Everybody sits here and says, what makes them so different? The way they play defense, it starts in their own end first. A lot of teams are like, oh, it's offense first now. We got to go get our offense in this league. Well, the Canes score a ton of goals. It's all predicated on how they play in their end first. And you get that buy-in right away, and that's why you've seen the Canes have the record they have right now. And if it hasn't been for a tremendous run, and I'm not taking anything away from the Washington Capitals, you take a look at the path that the Canes are on, really hasn't been any different than the last 4 or 5 seasons, Zach, as far as win total at this point in the season, or point production that they're getting, or points percentage that they're winning at right now. So it's just been a great year for the Caps, and they're keeping the Caps within shouting distance. I like to say whispering distance. And you said something a little bit earlier. I am not superstitious or whatever. I don't believe in anything. But when you're like, right. Oh, they got second wrapped up. There's a whole hell of a lot of hockey left to be played.
Oh yeah, there is for sure.
Top three, and that's what I thought this team was going to be. I knew they were going to be. I knew they were going to be a playoff team. The question is, where do they finish 1, 2, or 3 in the Metro Division?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, and I'm hoping for top 3 as well. I'm just feeling really optimistic about how they're playing so far for a second, for sure. And you talk about guys that kind of bought in and kind of worked their way. And you mentioned to me before, in passing, and stuff like that. But Jackson Blake, for the fact of what he's done in his rookie season, 3rd in goal scoring. And Rod is never, and you've said this, Rod is never someone who's going to just give it to you. You have to work hard for it. Yeah. And Jackson Blake, it's definitely worked hard for. What has impressed you with this rookie so far, for the fact that he starts on the 4th line, goes up to the 2nd, now is playing with Aho and Ranton, and you've seen it for the last few games now, even against the Kings. He's fitting in really well with that top line and kind of showing that he's a sneaky good scorer. If once everything clicks, and what you and Shane talked about on the other show, is that once that line's going, watch out.
Yeah. What impressed me about Jackson Blake is, and the answer is he's got no fear to his game, meaning I don't think that the stage is too big for him in his rookie year. And you're seeing more and more guys who come in at 18, 19, and they're able to play right away. That never used to be the case, Zach. Yeah. Now you're starting to get that. And Jackson Blake's a little bit more seasoned than that because of his time spent at North Dakota and playing college hockey. And that's a whole nother show for another day. But the fact that he is willing to try spin moves on defensemen like Drew Doughty, or that he's not afraid to cut to the front of the net on, defensemen like Darnell Nurse, guys who've been doing it for years in the league. That to me was what stood out. And now the last few games that I've watched, his hands, when he gets the puck and he's able to move it and create separation between him and the defender and some of the passes that he's made, that's what's really jumped up. And I think that comes with the confidence of it's a football coach who told me this one a long time ago about teams and players. You don't know you can do it until you do it. Mm-hmm. Well, Jackson Blake isn't trying to go, oh, I don't know if I can do it. He's doing it. Yeah. And then he finds out this move works, this move doesn't work, and you go on from there. And he is a smart player. Being around the game, having his dad in the game as long as Jason Blake was in it, I think is really a huge benefit for him. But those are the things that stand out for me about Jackson Blake right now.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, heck, he was a Hobie Baker finalist with 60 points at, like you said, North Dakota for a reason. So there you go. And he just fits his body structure and just how he plays his game fits Rod Brind'Amour's system as well. So two guys I want to go over real quick before we go into our first break and then talk about, moves that, could possibly be working out for the Canes if they do. But what are your thoughts so far on Mikko Rantanen and Taylor Hall? I know we've seen them in different, I know we missed Hall for their first game back in Carolina. Rantanen was there and stuff like that. But what has really impressed you so far with these two, even the fact that we haven't really seen them in very many games each so far?
I mean, the sample size is 4 games, Zach, so I can't really sit here and tell you, let's get in depth on it. But they are
just from what you've seen, I guess it was more so.
they are as advertised. That's what impresses me. Mikko Rantanen is as advertised. He is one of the top, if not the top, power forward when it comes into combining everything that you want in the National Hockey League. And for me, for a man that size to have the speed, but then have the hands in close, and I mean, he should have about 4 or 5 assists already. It's one of those. If you go back and look, and part of it is, sometimes you're adjusting and you're playing with new players, and guys aren't expecting a pass when he can make it. He can do all of that. And for Taylor Hall, for me, what has impressed me for where he's at, when he was in Boston, when he went there, he was just a contributor, but he was not counted on to be one of the top guys. And when you have Bergeron and when Krejci was there before they retired, but then you got David Pastrnak and Brad Marchand. He wasn't counted on to be the guy. Just be a guy. Go play with Charlie Coyle or go play with whoever. Then he goes to Chicago, trying to keep the career going. And you see sometimes when you get to those teams, you're giving your best, but how the situation is going to go. He gets back here into Carolina, and for me, he was a guy who I always looked at. Well, Taylor Hall's an offensive player, right? He's gonna come in. He's gonna score points. 2018 Hart Trophy winner for the MVP.
Yeah,
how good he is getting back into his own zone, and it's just been 3 games because he missed the one.
Right.
But the way that he has bought into the system, a lot of times when you get the veterans, the guys who've done it, I've done this 15 years and this and this. He's all about, okay, what do you need me to do?
Yeah.
How can I help? And it's early on. And again, super small sample size, but the best thing I can say about both of them early, Zach, they are as advertised. When you talk about their strengths, they've in 3 games for Taylor Hall and 4 for Mikko Rantanen, they're exactly what they're supposed to be.
Yeah, no, 100%. You hear from Taylor Hall himself. He wants to stick with one place, and he hopes it's Carolina. So if it works out with the cap going up and, wherever he's comfortable with and the Canes want to work it out with him, would not be upset you see Taylor Hall in that second line, however that kind of works out, or top 9, or however you want to figure that out. For sure. And Mikko Rantanen, it's a small sample size. Everyone's already comparing him to Nietzsche, but it's like, hey, let's just pump the brakes. It's 4 games, new system.
Well,
after a decade in Colorado. Let's cool the Jets a little bit. It's not instant here.
No, but that's what you do with trades. Trades are a comparison right off the bat, and everybody has to win a trade in 5 seconds after it's made. So again, everybody, let's just calm down, see where this all goes. And you know, Marty Natchez or Netchus now. I'm not going to go down that road again.
Don't worry, we're not.
But for Marty's always had the skill, always. Like it's that's never been the question. The question for him has been putting it together. I hope he goes and tears it up in the Western Conference and turns into that player. But again, to get something great, you have to give something up that is comparable, or the other team will want to justify, we got to give up Mikko Rantanen. Well, you better give us something that makes it worth a while. So, I'm not sneezing on Jack Drury either. I'm a big fan of Jack Drury and his game and the player that he's turned himself into. So, you know, it's one of those things. Again, everybody wants the gourmet meal out of the microwave. You know, 5 seconds. You know, 5 seconds after the trade, Zach, you've got to grade the trades, right? Grade the trade right away. Well, you know, haven't seen anybody play with anybody yet. Have no idea. A-, B+. Let's go arbitrary. You know, rarely do you see it. Let's find out. This trade will be judged, by the way, on the Canes postseason run, and then does Mikko Rantanen stay in Carolina? That's when the trade will officially be judged. And same thing for Colorado too. You know, they've got Marty under contract next year, but they have, you know, after that, they got to figure something out with them. So we'll see how that goes. But no, early returns are exactly what you'd expect them to be, I think.
Yep. No, definitely for sure. And well, speaking of that, you know, stick around, guys, for segment 2. We are going to talk about why I believe, and I want to get Mike's thoughts on this, of why we should be looking at more of center than goaltending. So stick around. We'll do that here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked on Hurricanes. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked on Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said, the end of segment 1, we're going to kind of talk about where I kind of think the Hurricanes need to go. And this is kind of stemming off of what, you know, Mike and Shane talked about on the other podcast, which is the Surgecast that I'm with. Make sure you go check that out after you listen to this one, of course. But I want to pick your brain on this, Mike, where I've seen a lot of people, you know, the trade season's coming up. We're over I think we're 34 days away as of recording and stuff like that. And somehow goaltending is still brought up. But for me, and I think of what you and Shane talked about, it's more of maybe we need to look more down the middle rather than in the net. Like, what are your thoughts overall of just that still kind of being a thing when you have Frederick Anderson back and Pierre Tkachuk has been playing so well this season? Why do you think that maybe the fans need to cool it with the goaltending as being the main thing to go for?
All right. So who are you going to get? And that's my question. Who are you going to get?
Exactly.
And it's just because that position is so hard to fill. And not saying that trades can happen, but you know, the Rangers aren't going to trade Igor Shesterkin. And I hate doing this because now you start getting into, when I say who would you get in there, you're not going to get Connor Hellebuck from Winnipeg. They're not trading him. Like, when I'm looking at all of the places that you would have to go to upgrade the Canes in net, those places are not trading those goalies. They're not. And, you know, if you think John Gibson might be the answer, okay, maybe. I haven't seen John Gibson win a Stanley Cup, you know, not in my lifetime. Did I miss it somewhere, Zach? I'm turning to you on this one.
No, you haven't missed.
and he's a fabulous goalie. He truly is. And maybe with this system, he'd be even better. But we're dealing in maybes, right? And you know, Dallas isn't going to trade you Jake Ottinger. That's not going to happen. So Florida's not giving up Sergei Bobrovsky to you. So you know, I run down the list of, if you're going to get a goalie who, in my mind, would be a difference maker, which is, I'm sure that's what the fans are thinking about, you know, because when we run into Vasilevsky or we run into Bobrovsky or we run it, and I get it and it's valid, but to get those guys, you're going to have to trade Mikko Rantanen, who you just got, right? You're going to, they're not going to give you these goalies for free. And I look at what the Canes could use when you talk about improving the team and what is doable and what can make the team better.
Right.
There are centers out there, and right now, it's funny, as part of the Mikko Rantanen deal, they gave up a right-handed center who killed penalties and was great on faceoffs. The Canes could really use a right-handed center who can help them kill penalties and is great on faceoffs. And you can get those guys from teams that are out of the playoff race right now, or teams that are going to fall out of the race, or teams that are up against it for the cap for next year. And they're like, well, we can't keep this guy.
Right.
And it's that, to me, you don't have to give up tangible assets that are on this team right now to do that. So if you were to ask me what's more feasible, what will make the Canes better, it's you have to look into the reality. It's folks, I loved the game and I've played it for decades, but the real NHL is not EA Sports NHL hockey where you just go, hey, well, I need a goalie, so I'm going to go trade this and this, and it'll work out for the cap. I wish that it worked that way. Yeah. But I also believe that the Canes, we've seen Frederik Andersen in now 4 games since he's come back. He's 3-1-0. And he'll even tell you the Kings game, he probably wants a couple back. Mm-hmm. But to come back after missing 38 games, basically 3 months, and just step right back in and be Frederik Andersen, that's impressive. And then there's Pyotr Kochetkov, where, all right, maybe this is a postseason where it might be his net. I mean, we'll see. So that the Zen philosopher in me is like, we'll see. But unless you could guarantee me one of those, elite goalie names without having to give up anything elite on your roster, and I get it. Again, I understand it's an easy one to point to because you know what? A lot of pundits at the start of the year said that's what the Kings needed. That's what they were missing. Mm-hmm. Well, they've been fine, to my knowledge. Who
would have thought, right? I still hear about it now, and I'm like, are you guys watching the Canes? I mean, but they're fine.
Don't get me wrong. Like if you could add something that makes sense, and I'd never say no. And here's what I know about the Canes now. And if you haven't been watching for the last 7 seasons, they look at everything. So if that's out there, if they feel that that's out there, Zach, they'll make that deal. But for me, you need to be strong down the middle in the postseason. You got to have centers who can win big face-offs for you and have big moments for you and just solidify the lines. And then the other thing, and Shane Willis, my outstanding co-podcaster and the brilliant analyst when we are at home and a few road games on FanDuel Sports Network. See, we're tying it all together. I heard your commercial. So if I was a betting man, couldn't wait for the Super Bowl. You really sold me, Zach. That being said.
You're welcome for that.
Thank you. But Shane talks about it. When you get the right guys, you then move players down the lineup or around the lineup where it's a better spot for them, and everybody benefits from it. So I think just right now, this is a team that doesn't need to do, they made the big move. Now it's okay. Is it another little complementary piece? And I don't even want to say little piece, but a piece that is more gettable to make this group a even deeper, harder team to play against in the postseason.
No, 100%. And honestly, and you and Shane talking about it when we were on SearchCast, and then I wrote an article about it today. And I think that there's one guy in particular I think could really round out this team where his cap would work, where his status is, because he will be a restricted free agent after this season. So you do have the nice little tie-in as well. And I think it's Morgan Geekie of the Boston Bruins, former, draft pick from the Carolina Hurricanes. I know you can't go into super deep detail, but do you think him as a player could, and he's a right shot, think he's like 20, I think he's like 26. So he's relatively almost going into his prime. How would you feel about if him being someone who could fit this system for the Canes, if possible?
First off, when you ask, can he fit the system, Zach, you already have the answer to the question. I mean, he's played in the system. He's fit in the system. He had that unbelievable debut in Pittsburgh where his family was there.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was a great debut. Fantastic.
So yeah, I mean he fits. Like he's a guy who clicks a lot of the clickers that you need. Okay, is this work? Do we know that he'll be the guy? Right. The thing for me with Boston is Boston's fighting for the playoffs. Are they going to give him up? So and maybe they view Geeky as a guy who, hey, he can be a part of our future. But no, when you say a name like that, yeah, he's a guy who he fits what we just talked about. Yeah. He does fit. And I like the youth. I like that he knows the team, so he'd come right in and there wouldn't be a steep learning curve on what needs to be done. I'd have to dive deeper into the numbers on how he is on the face-off circle, but he definitely can provide a little bit of scoring punch, and we're now starting to see maybe a little nastiness as well to his game.
Oh, but,
that's always a thing. But no, something in that mold, yeah, I would agree with that. Like that's something that the Canes are probably looking for and seeing, okay, who's out there, who's available, who's you're making, if you're Eric Tulsky right now, you're hearing from Rod Brindamore, this is what I'm looking for, this is what we need. And then you're, throwing the fishing lines in the water, Zach, and seeing, hey, not right now, but as we get closer, if, it's not working for you, we might have this prospect or this pick, which would make more sense. And then you're looking at fitting guys in under the cap. And again, that's the other thing too. We get closer to the trade deadline, you get more cap space to add a player if you want to do that. So.
Right, exactly. No, and yeah, like you said, I've been saying this for a while too, and hearing from you guys, it's Eric Tulsky's calling everyone. He's not sitting there like Eric Tulsky even said it too. He's been talking about Mika Rantanen since the offseason, and that was months ago, and it just came to fruition within like 6 weeks and then 48 hours. So yeah, there could be trades that there's gonna be conversations we don't even know about that they're keeping tight lipped because the fact that no one thought Rantanen and Hall would be on the Hurricanes map, and it was all about JT Miller and Pettersson. So that goes to show you the Hurricanes have no problem locking this down and making sure no one hears about it. So anything can happen, but hey, Morgan could be great, or anyone else that the Hurricanes can think they could fit the cap. So we'll definitely see. I know we have a long way away. I know you and Shane are going to get so many questions on Canes Cast about it, and I can't wait to hear you guys go, okay, make a trade that makes sense for us, and we'll talk about it. If not, sorry, try again next time.
like Zach, that's always my thing. And I'm not a general manager, and shockingly, they do not consult me for these
really
moves.
I'm kind of surprised. I mean, you watch all the games, Mike.
Yeah. Breaking news again. But like if you bring up bringing up that name, like that's to me, that's the fit. That makes this team better. That makes this team deeper. That you're looking for a piece like that, and ideally, you could get somebody with playoff experience, like who has gone deep into the postseason and has played some of those high leverage minutes that you're looking for. But the thing that we always ask when people talk about making a trade, or you need to do a deal. All right, do something realistic. Who and what's the cost?
Yeah, and it's like, and does it fit the cap, and who are you getting rid of, and who are you moving down the lineup? Oh, get a top 6. All right, who are you moving down? That's the thing. All right, who are you moving down? That's
who's moving out? Because that's how you have to look at it. So
exactly. All right, guys, we'll stick around. There's one more segment we had to get a touch on real quick. I want to get Mike's thoughts on, the preview of the Canes at the Winnipeg Jets. You got the number 1 team in the NHL against the number 5 team in the NHL. So stick around as we'll do that here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So your Carolina Hurricanes are going to be in Winnipeg Tuesday night as they take on the number 1 team in the NHL as of right now. Winnipeg 37-14-3 with 77 points, 2 over the Washington Capitals, a plus 64 goal differential. On a 6-game winning streak, they are 8-2 in their last 10. But here's the thing that catches my attention, though: 25-3 at home. Your Carolina Hurricanes 32-17-4, tied with Edmonton and Vegas for 68 points, but with points percentage, they are in 5th. A plus 30 goal differential, 6-2-2 in their last 10. Of course, we all know their home record, 26-1, but their road record, 12-11-3. Mike, I want to get your thoughts on, for the Carolina Hurricanes, what are the keys to them to go into a barn like Winnipeg, which is, crowd's a little bit more tighter on you, very, very loud. got Connor Hellebuyck in net. You got all the guys that are on that team right now. What are you looking for the Canes to going in there and maybe adding another loss to the Jets' home record?
Well, I mean, the keys are always the same, Zach. Honestly, we joke about it all the time. But what you have to do is you got to start the game on time. You cannot chase against the Winnipeg Jets. So for me, getting the first goal, I think would be huge. You have to win the special teams battle. That doesn't. I'm not saying draw. You have to win it. You've got to get a power play goal. You've got to keep the Jets off of the scoreboard if they get the man advantage. And as outstanding as the Canes penalty killers have been, pretty confident in that. Got to get the power play going right now if you're Rod Brindamore and the Canes, especially against a team like the Jets. Got to shut down Kyle Connor. Mark Scheifele is great, but Kyle Connor is, I think, a superstar that nobody talks about in this league. All he does is score 40 goals a year now, it feels like, and, touch 100 points. And then you got to make life miserable for Connor Hellebuyck, which is easier said than done if he's getting the nod. Oh, and then, by the way, the depth scoring that they have and a familiar face and Nino Niederreiter and guys like that who chip in. Like, you cannot take a breath against this Winnipeg team because it's funny watching them. It reminds me of the Canes. They come at you in waves, and they just keep coming after you and making life hard. And you also have to value the puck. I think I've hit every cliche that has ever said that when you ask, what are the keys to winning or the intermission interviews, but you got to get pucks in deep.
I say that too. Don't worry. I say that too. All my keys are the same thing. It's all the knocking off the cliches.
But when you're playing a team, they're cliches for a reason because they're true.
Yeah.
And when you're playing a team like Winnipeg, you have to take care of all of those things. And Winnipeg right now, they're asking the same thing. They have to do the same thing against the Canes. That's what Scott O'Neill is telling them when they're going over. You can't be loose in the neutral zone. You can't throw a pizza through the middle of our own end. Throwing one out in front of Connor Hellebuyck because they're going to be on it and they're going to make life miserable. But this should be one heck of a hockey game. I cannot wait. And it is, it's an intimate barn. It's not very big.
Oh,
and they're right on top of the action, so it should be a great atmosphere.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about an arena that's not that big. They're right on top of you. If this was a whiteout game, those are absolutely insane electric games for sure. And of course, you talk about Connor Hellebuyck a little bit. I mean, he's the guy that Team USA is looking for at Four Nations. I know you and Shane have got your little rivalry going with the fact that, back-to-back World Junior champs. Now it's Four Nations. It's a whole big deal. But for the Hurricanes, and then we kind of talk about the keys. I know you mentioned a lot of Jets guys to watch out for, but for the Carolina Hurricanes, who are you looking necessarily to be like, okay, for us to go and make it hard on Connor Hellebuyck, what Canes guys are you looking at to be like, okay, this is where it's time to make a statement measuring stick game against these guys who are right now the President's Trophy leading team?
I'll make this is an easy one for me. The line of Sebastian Aho, Jackson Blake, and Mikko Rantanen. Every time they're on the ice, they have to be a threat to score. It is. I'll boil it as down as simple as that.
I mean, he really can. We talked about. I mean, when you outscore the Kings 25-4, and the fact that those guys should have had almost 3 goals that night, maybe a combined 7 points just because of how close they had it. I mean, I even looked at the Kings. There was one line that was maybe a +1, and they're out chancing, and it was it was Trevor Moore and Philip Deneau. Like, that was it. That was their line. That was the only contributing line. Hurricanes at least had a couple that were really clicking, but that line in particular, when you go 25-4 and out chancing, and even on shots, I think there was a +6 on shot attempts for and allowed. Yeah, you said it. That line's clicking well. If that line's going against the Jets and makes it hard on the defense and gives Connor Hellebuyck trouble like they did for Kemper, who knows? Yeah, we could be seeing something where it's like, hey, this Hurricanes team can make some noise, and even with the guys they got now, and they can go and almost beat anyone in the playoffs if they, just play their game that we've been seeing lately. I mean, like you said, you go 22 points in the month of January with 10 wins. How much more dialed in can you be outside of what the Ducks and the Sabres game? If you turn those into point, like a win against the Ducks and a point against the Sabres, that point streak would have been a lot longer. And you're talking another win in the column. You can't sniff at 10. Like, that's fantastic in the month of January. So
pretty much. I mean, but 15-0 is always better than 10-3-2.
Oh, I mean, 100%. No, I mean, hey, 8-2-0 is fantastic as well, but we all know that. I mean, even
I know. It always upsets me when I have to break the news to everybody that your favorite team will not be joining all those other elites that went 82-0-0 in a season. It's never happened.
I think that the number is 0.
That would I don't have all of the research with me, but I'm pretty sure it's 0.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's not EA NHL where you could go 82-0 when you have like the mega team with no cap. Yeah, I'm sorry, not even the Red Wings of the 90s and 2000s were able to go 82-0. So, but it is what it is. But Mike, thank you so much for coming on. It is always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're in Winnipeg. You know, you guys just got in. You got the game tomorrow. Like I said, I just appreciate you. And of course, where can people find you? And of course, the amazing Canes cast. And of course, you got Canes Corner coming up and all that good stuff. So the floor is yours, sir.
Just go to CarolinaHurricanes.com. All of the podcasts are listed there, which are easy to get to. I think I put my X, Twitter, whatever the heck that thing's called, handle down there. Go find that, and that's where you can find me. Or I'll just be somewhere talking hockey on a corner.
Yeah, on a corner somewhere.
Probably corner of Portage in Maine when it's -5 degrees outside.
Yeah, right, exactly. Just watch out for the caribou, and in the summer, watch out for the big mosquitoes. If you know, you know. But guys, thank you for making this your first listen of the day here at Locked On Hurricanes. For your second listen, well, check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube, or if you listen to podcasts. Keep up with me. I'm at OneTrueZach on X. Podcast is _. Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky at Zachary Martin. Of course, if you want to check out my other podcasts, well, search Cast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. If you want to check out my writing, thehockeywriters.com. You can find all that great stuff over there. If you want to find this on YouTube, Locked On Hurricanes, subscribe, hit the bell notification, you'll miss the show. Thumbs up, let me know if you like the show as well. Share with all other Caniacs to become everydayers just like you. Hope everyone enjoyed this Tuesday episode with Mike Maniscalco. Enjoy your Tuesday. Have fun watching your Carolina Hurricanes at 8 o'clock against the Winnipeg Jets. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.